dog in your life is thinking? Well, join me, Liz Murdoch, Animal Communicator, talking with the dogs and finding out what dogs want people in their lives to know and understand. I've spent my life talking and listening to animals. So, if you consider yourself a dog person or just happen to have a dog, I'm here to help you learn how to talk or listen to the dogs in your life. I chat with people too, sharing stories and tips on exactly how animal communication or being a dog whisperer makes an impact at home or when working with the dogs. So welcome to Talking with the Dogs podcast, a place where we uncover exactly what dogs want us to know and celebrate that every dog has a story. This episode is brought to you by Noble Pet Foods. No nonsense, no bull. Go to noblefoods.com, use promo code DOGTALK15, and they'll deliver dog food to your house with no bull. So welcome. I'm Liz Murdoch, talking with the dogs, and today we have a talking dog who uses the buttons. I'm so excited. We've got Joelle with Bastian, who you may know of Bastian and Bruise. On Instagram, he not only touches the buttons, but he's got a huge personality as well. And we're gonna find out, he's resting there. He's a dark colored dog, so they're sometimes harder to see, but we're gonna talk to him and find out what he and Joelle have to say about talking with the dogs with the buttons where they press. And if you have not seen his Instagram and his videos, you don't wanna miss them.
Potty now. Do you want to go potty? Potty now. Now. Okay.
Welcome, Joelle. I am so thankful that you took the time out of your day to talk with us about getting started on the buttons, how it works, what you've learned, what you can share with people, the anecdotes. I have questions. And Bastian, whenever you want to chime in. So I am intuitive, for those of you new. I get messages intuitively from the dogs. And so I'm going to tell Bastian that we are not using the buttons today in this conversation. So he can stay there. No, we're not. And I'm a bit of a fan, and I'm not going to fan out on you, but we're going to talk in a new way. And so whenever Bastian wants to share a message through his thoughts and give me a sense of feeling and all of that, a knowing, we'll share them. But first off, welcome, Joelle.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, I'm sure you get asked, how did you start? How did you know? Go ahead.
Well, so I remember back in, I think it was fall of 2019, someone had, I don't know whether I found it on Instagram or someone had sent me Christina Hungary teaching Stella to use the buttons.
Right.
And I was fascinated by it because it was about a year after we got Bastian. And I think a lot of people see these videos and go, oh, I could never do that. Or my dog could never do that. Or my cat could never do that.
Right.
And, I was no different. I was like, oh, I don't have the time. And Bastian would just not be interested. Right. And so fast forward about 6 months, we're in the middle of the pandemic. And now I see Alexis and Bunny doing it. And I was like, wow, here's another dog.
Right.
I think I had the button sitting in my cart from March of 2020 until I finally pulled the trigger and purchased them. I actually went through my purchases the other day and found June 7th, 2020, we first ordered the buttons and they arrived June 9th. And even still, they sat on like my desk for a little while, and I was apprehensive about opening them and getting started. And my sister-in-law came over and she was like, no, go get that box. We're going to start right now. And she really pushed us. And so we were still pretty new to it. It was still very new. So we didn't know what best practice was. And we have now found out that starting with the treat button is not best practice. No. But I think that's really what kind of made Bastian stand out initially from the other dogs, is that he's a little obsessive about his food particulars. So we started with the treat button. Yeah.
Why were you hesitant? Do you know? Or were you, why
I just
wait?
I don't actually know why I had reservations. I think that I was nervous about it not being successful. We had unsuccessfully trained him to use the bells to go outside, and
He didn't
we
like
actually
the
found.
bells. He didn't like the ding.
Well, actually, what we found out was that my mom would come home and let him out during her lunch, and she was getting frustrated waiting for him to hit the bell, and she'd hit it herself. And we caught her on camera a couple of times. So the joke became that Nana needed to go out every time she hit the bell instead of the dog. So I think that he just got so used to,
Yeah.
someone else doing it for him that he was like, what's the point?
Right.
So, really, I think the hardest thing with the buttons is actually training the humans and training all of the humans around us. We have my mom living downstairs from us. We have my husband. We have a lot of family that come and visit us at the cabin, and just getting them comfortable with knowing where the buttons are and what the expectations are for communicating with Bastian.
So that's a big thing, whether it's dog, the training of when you tell a dog, that you're going to go for a walk, you have to do it. Dogs like consistency. And the first time I saw Stella, I was like, wait a minute. Christina is so responsive that people need to notice that the reason, not just the reason, Stella's very right. But the reason this button stuff is working for so many people that are doing it is the consistency, and you have to make that commitment. And it's just like if you're not going to let your dog on a couch, then everyone in the house has to agree to that, or that if dad's doing it, then the dog's going to be like, well, I can do it. So
100%.
Yes. Okay. So would you say it was a bigger job than training the people than Bastian?
I'd say so. And I think it's just, honestly, even for myself, sometimes it's challenging. It's like having a small child in a way, because you get lazy. There's definitely days where he hits something and you just, he hits walk and you don't feel like going for a walk. It's late, right. It's 9:00. And especially before you introduce words like no and all done, we found ourselves like going on quick walks up and down the block at all hours of the day, just to kind of reinforce the meaning of the words so that he could place a value to it. So I think that being at his beck and call just to model the words and give them value was tricky initially, and it still can be. He can get pretty demanding.
So, I remember a friend when she was potty training her son saying, this is a lot of work, because when he says whatever word they were using, you have to stop everything. And she said,
Yep.
I'm at the grocery store and suddenly you have to do that. So with child number 2, she decided, I'm just going to wait. I just can't. Yeah. So it is true. And I think I'm hearing more people talk about the similarities of child rearing and dog parenting, that you have to, when the animals give you a message, you better follow that. Even in my work as intuitive, if we get a sense, it's like, okay, follow that through. I think my dog wants to go outside. I'm going to get up. Okay, so Bastian, the bells didn't work. Nana had to learn not to do that, but you gave that up. You got to the buttons, and you have to pick your words carefully with the buttons. So now you've got a board that's all over the place. And he has learned, from what I've seen, that if he really wants something, he'll press them over and over and over.
Yes.
What's that like? What do you do about that?
Nothing. I don't mind it. I think that the biggest frustration, I actually kind of find it amusing when he does that. I think the biggest frustrating piece is actually the video editing purpose of it, because I caption all of his videos. Right. I'm like, oh my God, how many times did he just hit that walk button? Because that means I have to type it out each time. But honestly, I think that it's part of his terrier energy. I just think he's so emphatic about anything, and his communication in general. He's so expressive. And I think that the obsessive hitting of the buttons is no different.
Okay, so here's a question about interpreting it. Because you and I talked, there was one of the videos where it was like, walk to the fridge. And you're like, well, do you want to walk? And I said, well, maybe it means he wants you to walk to the fridge. How do you interpret? And first of all, how do you interpret? I was going to then say, what advice do you have for people trying to interpret or make sense of messages? But first off, how do you interpret and figure out in those sentences what it is he wants?
I look for patterns between the words that he hits. There's been a couple of things that he's hit that don't necessarily make sense right away. And fridge car was one of them. And we started to put together that he hit fridge car when we heard the ice cream truck coming around. And I had actually coined that term on a walk one day and just never thought anything of it again, because I try to use our common language when I talk to him. I'm not going to tell him it's an ice cream truck because he doesn't know what an ice cream or truck is. So I said, oh, it's a fridge car. And I just left out the part about it selling treats.
And he remembered that. He
connected the music at a later point. And he occasionally, if he hears it, he'll go over and hit that.
Wow.
So yesterday he hit fridge car walk. And so I wasn't sure if that was his way of saying like, hey, let's go find it.
Right. So did you go for a walk or?
We did, but see the Mr. Softy truck, it's on the other side of town and we could not find it. We walked for about 2 miles and then he sat his butt down as if to say like, all right, I've had enough. Let's go home. So,
oh, there you go. So that's another thing that I want to point out to people is that you do tie in the body language with the buttons, and that Absolutely. If someone's going to do the buttons, just know that to enhance it, you got to pay attention to the body language and then the communication besides pressing the buttons.
Yeah. And I just think about overall, like, there he goes. Children behavior. When you're reinforcing behavior, you want to give them like 3 hits for a negative. So if you have to like correct them for something, you want to make sure that you're giving them 3 compliments or praising them for 3 things that they're doing. And so I try to do the same thing. If I'm noticing that his body language is frustrated because he can't communicate the message that he's trying to tell me, I will look for like small steps that he can do in the interim to still build upon that. So he's having a successful time working towards it. I think that if the buttons ever become a point of frustration, it's no longer fun for him. It's no longer meaningful for me. And then that just devalues our relationship and our own communication.
Right. So that's interesting. So in terms of also making sense, when I get information from a dog, it might be, I don't know, like car or walk, for instance. We'll use walk because you get that too. Okay. So I'm like, oh gosh, your dog is saying something about a walk. And then if I say that and the person is like, I don't know I'm not sure, then I will go back to the dog, and it sounds like that's what you're doing and I will ask for more information. Can you tell me this so your person can know this is from you and piece it together? How much of the time are you having to put away your assumptions and be like, okay, let me think of what he wants? Do you have to do that very much?
I think some of the words that become tricky for me are the descriptor words. We have an entire tile of more, yes, no, okay, all done later. And sometimes he'll hit no later or all done, yes. And I'm like, is he saying that, yes, he's all done? Or is he saying like, no, we're all done with this conversation. We're all done with whatever you said. We're all done with it.
Right.
And so trying to make sense of that can be tricky at times. And I also think that I get fixed in my own opinion of what's happening, that I'm not always open to the other possibilities of what he might be saying. And, I have very expensive vocabulary in comparison to him. He only has 62 words right now. Right. So he can only use those words to communicate. So it's very possible I'm missing the message. And there have been times where we have friends come visit or my mom's with us and he says something and I completely miss it. And they're like, no, that's not what he was saying. He was trying to say yada, yada, yada. And what they said is so much more appropriate and it makes so much more sense for the context than the limited belief I had about what he was trying to say.
Yeah. I think that is a really good point for all of us. However, our animals are communicating, that we be open. And even if somebody else comes in and says, have you considered this? Be open to that.
Yeah.
And that's what the buttons are showing us. That's really interesting. So you videotape these and you've got the camera set up, and I know it's not just for us. Tell me how the scientists are involved. What's that role?
So I was always kind of interested in the aspects of science. I have a background in neuroscience and cognitive studies that I researched just learning disabilities, math disabilities specifically, and working memory. And so I find it very fascinating, like how people manipulate information that they have. And so it's very similar with dogs. How much information can a dog hold in its mind? How many words can they string together at once? And so when I found out the University of California in San Diego, the cognition lab was studying this, I really like jumped on the opportunity to be part of the participants. So they're right now in phase 1. So it's just we fill out surveys every other week with just general information. I track every single button press that Bastian hits.
Oh my gosh.
Lee tracks them. It can be frustrating again when he hits like 1,000 words and we're sitting there like, how many times did he hit that? Trying to refresh my Google sheet. But it does spit out a spreadsheet. We post the analytics on our link on our social media too, so everyone else can see what he said for the day if they log in.
Oh wow!
And we use that to track it, and then we submit that information and along with some videos. But I think phase 2 is actually going to be we have a Nest Cam running 24/7 in our house, and I think that that's going to be phase 2 for anyone else that wants to participate. Is having that live footage, making sure that there's not someone in the room, with a laser pointer or something, cueing the animals or training them on specific buttons to hit. So it's been amazing what people have accused us of doing.
Yeah. So I was like, Coco the gorilla, people, they got so much, they just edited and they taught the gorilla to like a dance routine. Yeah. But I think I understand. I mean, people think like, how does this work? This can't be real.
Well, I think it goes back to remembering the bell and the fact that dogs, or how many dogs, like you say, oh, do you want to play frisbee? And they run and get their toy. They know what they mean. So it's just now associating that with a particular word. And I think it'd be way harder to teach Bastian a new sequence of words every single day than it would be to say, okay, well, week 1, this is the word we're focused on. Week 2, this is the next word, and give him something to build upon.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have 3 dogs, and I mean, they know when it's Saturday and the dog walker comes. It's 7:00. He's not coming for an hour. They're at the gate waiting. So, yeah. So the naysayers can come around when they're ready. But this is fascinating. Are you familiar with the work of MJ Barrett in Canada, who is researching? She just published a paper about some work she's doing with intuitive animal communication. So
no, that's fascinating, though. I'm very open to that.
Yeah. So again, for listeners, the science is coming out. People are doing, or it will come out. The studies are happening. And she just published a paper. So that's a good thing to know that, yes, this is real. People are figuring that there's more. So Bastian, do you want to say anything? Let's see if you want to tune in. You're busy. I get that. Bastian likes the message being shared. I get. Okay. So Bastian, people watch you and I've watched you. And so I'm wondering if there's anything that you can share for us. Hey, Bastian, if there's anything you can share for us intuitively in the new way, and that's fine if you lay down. I know it's late for you where you are right now, but I'm just going to give you the opportunity. We're not using buttons. We're going to use intuitive. And I want to see if there's anything that I wouldn't know from watching the videos of you that you like. Okay, so there's going to be more. He wants to share the stage. We talked previously before we met for this interview, and he is interested in sharing the stage with Kylie. And that Kylie, he wants to say that again, and that for listeners, Kylie is in more of the videos than people notice. I guess she's in the background, which I haven't noticed. And so if you want to play a game, he's saying this, if anyone wants to play a game like Where's Kylie, go back to the videos and find where Kylie is watching in the background. I never noticed that. Do you notice that?
Yeah, she likes his bed a lot. Yeah, she likes his bed a lot.
Okay, so notice Kylie. What else, Bastian, that you could share with us? There's more to come. So there's more to come about Kylie. So what do you mean there's more to come? He says, ask you. So maybe she doesn't want to share, because Bastian, there was a dog I talked to that was giving some names, some business things away. So I don't know what she can share. Is there something you can share? He's saying there's more to come that you know about. Is there anything you want to share? I'm not going to make you share anything if it's not time.
No, not particularly. One of the things we were going back and forth with whether or not we were going to train Kylie on the buttons. And one of the reservations I had was we take the buttons with us every weekend when we go to the cabin. And Kylie doesn't come unless it's like a week-long trip or longer. So she'll be coming up with me for the summer, but we don't take her for 2 days. It's just too stressful for her. And part of my reservations with teaching her is I thought it was pretty unfair to remove her, to teach her something and then remove it for 2 out of the 7 days of the week every week. But recently the buttons started to get a little bit of wear after 40 weeks of back and forth to the cabin. So we decided to order a second set just to leave up there. So that means that we now have full access for Kylie if she's at home or if she's upstate. And that both sets are modeled exactly the same. If we add a button on Long Island, there's going to be a button upstate, even if it's something that he can't access in both places. So there's a boat button on Long Island, even though there's no boats here. Now that we have the ability for her to always have access, we've been working a little bit more with the buttons. And since Hallie has passed about 2 months ago, she's taken a greater interest in both Bastian and the buttons. So
she's got some things to say. So, and we did talk about this before, but Bastian is continuing on this about different buttons. I guess there's the softer buttons, but talk about for people listening too, then, because I think he wants that when you pick buttons, if anyone's going to give this a try, how you pick the buttons, because there's different kinds of buttons. Do you have an opinion that some buttons might be more suited to a certain kind of dog? What should somebody know about picking the button? Because I'm getting that from Bastian, that there is something that makes a difference.
So we started with the learning resources buttons, and those are the bigger, more colorful ones that Stella uses. And they were great for a couple of reasons. They're easily available. You can get them on Amazon or eBay, and they're at your house within like 2 days. They're $20, so it's low stakes. You spend $20 and you only want to work with 4 words, or you decide that it's not for you. It's no harm, no foul. You didn't invest a ton of money in the buttons.
Right.
They are bigger. So if perhaps you have a clumsier or bigger dog, maybe it would be a better investment for you. And I found that they're pretty easy to modify. I actually unscrewed the bottoms and popped the sound recordable button out, and it made the sound quality better. I prefer the Fluent Pet buttons, which is what we're using now. I like that they're organized with the hex tiles. They're built on the Fitzgerald key, which is you keep them categorized. So for example, we have the descriptors tile that I mentioned earlier, Bastian tile that's just food related items. He's got a tile with action words on it and just toy tile. So it helps organize the words in a natural way so that he would be able to locate them supposedly more easily based on that philosophy. And the buttons are smaller, so they take up less space, and they're a little bit easier, more consistent to activate, I found, than the learning resource buttons.
Interesting.
What do you want? You want to play frisbee outside?
Frisbee outside.
Get your frisbee. Come on.
If you took the walk button and put it in the center of the food button, have you ever done that? Does that make a difference? When people say, how are they doing it from pattern, or maybe do you even know?
So we've never moved buttons from board to board, but we have, back when, even a month ago before we had the second set of tiles, we would bring the tiles, we completely dismantle the entire set, all like 10 or 11 hex tiles, put them in a container, ship them up, bring them up to the cabin with us, and then reconfigure them once we got up there.
Right.
And a lot of times Bastian was still able to locate the tile itself and find the word he was looking for. So we would get up there and he'd still hit walk first button or treat first button. And I think it has to do a little bit with, the tiles are different colors and everything, but I also think it has to do with the iconology and the shape of the word. Some people have asked if he can read, but we've never taught him sounds. I don't suggest that dogs can read, but I think that, he might get used to the fact that walk has a certain look to it versus his name or, hungry. So
here's something to think about. So I was a kid, I very much in tune with my dog when I was 8. And I always say we won the blue ribbon against adults. So I definitely had a unique bond with my dog. So I took him one time. My family was tennis players, and we had a big laundry basket full of yellow tennis balls. And I took his ball, and that was in the garage. So I picked up the ball and I took a marker and I put a circle on it. I put it in the ball, mixed it. There were no cars in the garage. And I took the laundry basket and I threw it up in the air. And then I said, go get your ball. And this was this little 9-pound dog. And he went and got that ball. I mean, it was a laundry basket full. So I think, so that had to do with smell, probably. That was the only way that he could do that. Never had scent work done. He just was like, it was a game for us. So I would imagine there's probably some, like Walk probably also has a scent. His oil is on there. He's pressed it so many times. Who knows? But the researchers are on it.
Well, funny that you say that. When he found the, I think it was the Walk button, or no, it was the Hungry button, was the first one he hit when we got upstate with the brand new tiles that he had never touched before. Wow. So that was the only thing that went against that, because we do have scratch and sniff stickers on about a third of our buttons. We were adding them as we were learning new words, hopefully with the idea that they would facilitate just memory.
Right.
So, yeah.
So this is going to be so fascinating. So I don't want to take up all your time. What's the time frame for like this research? You know, people like me are like, well, when are they going to know? And all of that. There's phase 2. Do they have a phase 3? I mean, you don't have to say what it is. I mean,
they probably will have a phase 3. Honestly, they're being a little tight-lipped with us too. And I appreciate that, because the second they start telling us what they're looking for, you're going to get people that are training their pets to meet those expectations. The second they say, oh, we're looking for spontaneous things that are like this, you're going to see a whole bunch of videos popping up with that exact thing that they say that they're looking for.
Interesting. And then you got people like me saying, what's next? And Bastian even said there's more coming. So Bastian knows. He's heard things. Oh, all right. Well, no pressure. We want them to really, for the good of the dogs, Bastian, we want to have the scientists be able to say, this is what we found. Nobody knew. And it's legit. So, okay. So Bastian, how would we wrap this up? Because, you know, we want to give you the final say. He's like, he does get the final say, but not always. Okay. So he's saying be firm. I guess you can still be firm with the dog. And, you know, Bastian, what do you mean by be firm? He says he goes, I know my limit. She's forced me to learn my limits. And that he said it's funny, but actually what's made him so good at this, and Bastian, you are a handful. I've seen you Zoom all over. That what makes you so good at this is your teamwork, and that she is firm, and that part of it is being not firm in a bad way. He wants to clarify that, but the consistency, but being firm in what you do with the buttons and firm with the people. If someone's going to try this, wow, it's like you have to be organized and methodical and firm in your commitment to the well-being of your dog, the people in your house. He's very serious. Okay. Wow, Bastian, you are a little rascal when you first look at him, but he knows that being firm in all the best ways, in your commitment, in what you're doing, in your consistency, is really important to the success of this. Wow. What do you think of that? What he said, or what I got?
I think that's very accurate. I think one of the conversations I have with a lot of people is a lot of people think of it as a very expensive investment. And it is. If you're going to go and pull the trigger and get the full set of Affluent Pet buttons with like the 12 or 10 or 12 tiles and the 30 buttons it comes with, it's almost $200. That's a lot of money to invest in something that you're uncertain about. Right. But the way it is, if you're apprehensive about spending the money, you should be more apprehensive about the amount of time and that it's going to take, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of cooperation between you and your learner. It's a lot of knowing each other's limits. You know, you can't just set up the buttons on day one and be like, okay, go ahead, do it. So I think that it can be very frustrating at times for both of us. The thing that frustrates me the most is definitely when he's having difficulty communicating, he'll just stomp across every button on the board, just like have like a little tiny tantrum, like hit everything. And I feel like he's desecrating our sacred language. but I know it's coming from a point of like his own frustration.
So he has a response that I'm getting, and that's when he's like, and this is why it's important to understand that body language. And also, I mean, you do it, but it's also like he's reminding how, I guess you have something you do to help him calm down and center. And that for anyone else listening, hi, Kylie, I want to let Joelle say something about what you do when he's had enough that calms him, that he can take a break and decompress. Because he's showing me you do something.
A lot of
are you
times,
aware of what it is that you do?
a lot of times I'll just take a step back from the board and sit with him for a second. Well, he's definitely a snuggle monster. You wouldn't think so. He's so passionate and aggressive with the buttons, but he really, when he gets stressed, he wants to sit in my lap. He wants to be pat. Yeah. So I will take him away from the board and just sit with him myself, just to connect with him at that level
and decompress. And that's interesting. And also, out of courtesy, people who might be aspiring to this, the scientists are taking it seriously. I get that. And that Bastian is like, he sees the work you do, and that sometimes you have to stop and focus when he wants to do something. I get this image that you say, no, I got to finish this. And so in all seriousness, the buttons for the people, it's gratitude that we get to share it for all of you, Bunny and Stella, if you're listening, thank you for all you're doing, sharing this with us to open doors of understanding and connecting with our dogs. And if you are not ready to make the commitment, but you want to try it with your dog, I can guarantee you that the tennis ball is a fun game to play and put with a permanent marker and have your dog go find it. And that's a fun thing to do that, I've remembered. And that is another way to show that our animals know more that's going on. Kylie, do you want to say something? Kylie the cat, we are going to be seeing more of you. Now's your big chance to step on in front if you want. You don't have to be camera shy. We know you're not, but we're going to wrap this up. Kylie, you want to say anything? I know you're a nice kitty. Okay, so Kylie's going to make a big debut, she says, one of these days. So no guarantees when. Joelle's in charge running the show, Kylie, but she's giving you the opportunity to make your debut in your own special way. And we just invite listeners to this podcast to go to Bastian and Bruce to find out more about their work together, and to watch for when Kylie does make her grand debut of pressing buttons and whatever her message is going to be. Is that right, Kylie? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at that. Joelle, do you want to add anything?
I guess the only thing I want to add is that anyone can do this, and don't please, like, when you're starting out, if you're going to do this with your pets, don't start out with any expectations. Don't look at Bastian or Stella or Bunny and go, oh my God, I need to have 50, 60, 100 buttons. You could just have 2. You could have 4. You can, it doesn't have to limit, your potential.
Yeah.
To have a relationship with your pet.
Do you have suggestions? You said not to do treat, and for the obvious reasons. Do you have a handful that they could choose from if they're looking for direction?
I think that you need to be very conscious of the language you use with your pet every day. Outside is a great one. Walk is a great one. But of course, if you're living in a high-rise apartment in the city and you're unable to take your pet for a walk, or you yourself have limited mobility, then I would skip that and move on to something else that you're using. I think if you look at the different animals, they all have their own different words that are very specific to them. The first one that comes to mind is the chatty lab, and Copper has a donut button. And I don't know any animals that have donuts. So it's really specific to the words and the toys and the lifestyle that you and your pets have.
That's great. So here's an exercise homework for anyone who wants to do this. Just start noticing the words that your dogs know. And I talked to a dog trainer once. I said, what words does your dog know? And she's like, I don't know, just the commands. And so even those of us who work with dogs a lot or have them, we may not be aware of what they are. And they may be like, my dogs will know goodbye. I've got 3 dogs right here sleeping. And as soon as we start doing that, they will get up. But so one of them just did. So start noticing and keeping track in your home. It's a fun game. What words do your dogs know? What words do you find that you have to spell? Is it WALK? TREAT. And that's a great starting point. And after you get to at least a couple, would you say, Joelle, that's a good time to maybe consider, but don't do it. Don't do the buttons till you have a good number of words that your dog knows. Is that fair?
Right. Well, you want to start with one at a time regardless, but I think that, that really, that's how you set up which is going to be next based on what you think. And then once you start having a base, you can start to see, well, they probably were trying to say this, but they didn't have the word for it. So I'm going to give them that word next.
Yeah. Okay. Bastian, do you have anything you want to say? He's like, no, we covered it. He likes the firm thing and being, having it ordered. That you'll notice the commonality, all the dogs, Bunny and Stella, my chatty lab, Bastian, the Daily Steve, the cat who's great, that the people doing this are pretty consistent. And that's what makes it successful. And when the animals are done, it's respecting that they're done and taking a break and reassuring them, like the feeling that I got from Bastian, that you help him decompress when there's a disconnect, like trying to understand what your child might be saying and you don't get it, or somebody who speaks a foreign language that you don't know. So yeah, just take note of the structure of it, but otherwise you get to just enjoy watching it and being open. Bastian and Bruce on Instagram, Hunger for Words. What about Bunny? It's all great ways for people to learn more about animal communication and new ways that we are finding that animals do have messages for us, very specific messages that we may look at our dog and think they want this. We make an assumption, but they're pressing a very specific word. So best way to reach you is on Instagram. Is that correct?
Yes, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Pinterest, we're on Facebook, we're on pretty much everything. And we're also on, my little plug is going to be for how.theycantalk.org. And that's a great community message board. If anyone's getting started with canine or feline communication, there's a great community there of people that are learning together with everything from guinea pigs to bunnies to horses to pigs. There's different animals learning, and together we're helping troubleshoot different things, different problems that have come up. So I urge anyone that has questions to reach out to that community.
Perfect. Can you say it again slower?
Sure. It's how.theycantalk.org. And it's if you go to the Fluent Pet website, which is there's a link in our bio, you can get all of that information there as well.
So exciting. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bastian, thank you. I know it's the end of the day. Can't wait to see what's next. Kylie, we look forward to your grand debut, whatever that's going to be. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Liz Murdoch, Talking with the Dogs. I invite you to subscribe to the podcast. We've got more great, interesting guests coming, people and dogs, finding out what they want you to know about animal communication and anything else. I'm Liz, and have a great day. Ready to find out what your dog wants you to know? Visit talkingwiththedogs.com, book an appointment with me, and we'll find out. Thanks for tuning in to Talking with the Dogs. Hope today's episode made you want to understand your own dog better and appreciate that every dog has a story and something to say. Subscribe now for more dog stories and insights into animal communication and what it's like to be a dog whisperer. Review this episode on Apple Podcasts or follow Talking with the Dogs on Instagram or Facebook and sign up for a chance for you and your dog to be a guest on the show. Whatever you do, I hope you'll spend time talking with the dogs.